Hello and welcome back to Blow Up the Team. Jeremy here today with Matt.
Hello, hello.
Today we're going to be going through the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and their NFL draft. Before we get into the video, couple housekeeping things. One, this week is going to be unlike the last few weeks. There's going to be two videos, 3 days this week. Just because of how it's all worked out, we want to be able to finish both the NFL draft grades as well as the MLB preseason grades before the MLB season starts up. Jesus, I cannot talk tonight. So look out for that. Also, specific to this video, like usual, we do not own the rights to any of these clips, so any highlights that you see, I will leave the original video linked in the description down below, so make sure to check that out. But I think a good place to start when looking at the Tampa Bay Bucks and their draft this year is to, like most teams, talk a little bit about what the 2019 Bucks looked like. They had one of the best offenses in the league, despite famous Jameis, who I'm sure Matt will have something to chime in on in a few minutes because his favorite player
The
in the league.
famous Jameis turnover bakery. Listen, this isn't even my joke. This is urinating tray. I just fucking love that fucking joke so much, and I love I love watching Tampa Bay Bucks games, even or just like the highlights because it's amazing to watch a guy throw either the best or worst passes in the league. And not to mention, I mean, listen, a couple times, obviously there was a couple times this season where his wide receivers just straight up, had the catch and then said, "Ooh, let me shovel it to the defender real fast." And there's other times where his wide receivers also said, "Oh, that's an interception. Let me just try to help you out here, buddy." But still,
Okay. Despite all of this, they still had one of the best offenses in the league. They were third in yards per game, first in passing yards per game, only 24th in rushing yards per game. They did not run the ball very often. I think more than it speaks to the talent of the running back core, it just speaks to the fact that they just simply didn't run the ball very much. But they were fourth in points per game, so this was a productive offense regardless. And I think that that was a huge, huge part in the fact that they even went 7-9 last season. The defense was not great. Wasn't We'll get to defense in a second, but some notable pickups in the offseason. I don't think anybody that's watching this video needs me to tell them. You signed Tom Brady and allowed Jameis Winston to walk away, and they also traded a fourth round pick for Gronk in a seventh. Um, let's talk about this for a second.
I didn't even like. Oh my god! I didn't even know you could trade a guy who's announced his retirement.
Well, so he was still technically under contract. So when he came back, when he announced that he was coming out of retirement, he was still under contract to the Patriots. So they, um, or either that or they had to do a sign and trade. I don't remember. But I do know the Patriots technically had the rights to him, and it was requiring a trade. Um, so yeah, this offense should look extremely different next season. I don't necessarily mean different in a bad way. Obviously, they had one of the best offenses in the league. So it's going to be interesting to see how this transition is. Jameis Winston and Tom Brady are just very simply not anywhere near close to the same type of quarterback. Tom Brady at 42, going on 43 years of age, um, perhaps does not have the arm he once did. I think that that needs to be noted. I don't know that he can run this offense the way that Jameis Winston ran it, and I'm not saying Jameis Winston ran it efficiently at all. I'm just saying it's going to have to look different. Jameis is able to make a little bit more things happen with his legs than Tom is. It's going to be a little bit more stagnant in the pocket for Tom, obviously. I would expect to see some more checkdowns to his running back and tight ends, just because that's a system that we've seen him run very efficiently for a lot of years now, and kind of at this point in his career, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of deal. Bringing in Gronk will help with that, giving him a safety valve that he knows he can rely on. Um, but I think it would be naive to expect this offense to run the same way that it did. Part of the reason I think that this Bucks offense ran the way that it did, aside from the fact that, well, I'll let Matt handle his point of view, but my personal opinion on what part of why this is they have one of the faster offenses in the league, especially um, when you take into account the fact that they were just they utilized their speed in every way that they possibly could. A lot of go routes, a lot of quick slant routes. There was not a whole lot of like advanced route running going on, and that sounds really naive from somebody who couldn't run a route for his life. So full admission here, but it did seem like there was a lot of go routes running into their offense. They were looking to utilize their speed whenever they could. Quite frankly, if you use them in Madden, it's actually broken because of how fast their offense is, but that's a whole nother story. Um,
Madden equals real life success.
yeah, 100%. Their system is not bugged at all in any ways. But I know
And
that
MLB
you
The Show,
have.
the Mets can't choke as often because it doesn't count the Mets factor. It counts actual statistics and how players are supposed to do.
There's that. So I know you have a different opinion on why the Bucks offense ran the way that it did. Do you want to chime in?
Well, I mean, yes, they're ridiculously fast, but ridiculously fast doesn't mean you need to go for as many deep plays as they do. They went for a lot of deep plays because they
I mean,
had
they
a
also have Mike
ridiculous.
Evans. Quick note, they do have Mike Evans, so there is
No,
that.
yeah. But they have a guy who is extremely volatile in the terms of just longer, game plans or offensive game plans. He has a high likelihood of turning it over. So you run these faster off. You have a naturally gifted offense that gives you a chance to go for these longer plays. And so they threw it a lot because Jameis has a ridiculously powerful arm, although inaccurate. And so that's why the offense looked the way it did. Now I'm not going to say that obviously Tom Brady could still throw the ball, but Tom Brady's offense has always had for years now has had consistently like most yards after pass, and that was with guys like Julian Edelman and Gronk and a bunch of guys who you know, for the most, like obviously they brought in a couple, big name guys from here and there, but the big name guys were never the reason that the Patriots were the Patriots. It was guys who, weren't necessarily the flashiest runners or the best, but they, could run short routes and do what they needed to do. He's coming in with significantly more talented wide receivers on this team than what they have on the Patriots currently, and so it could end up being a really productive partnership for them for that reason.
I think I am going to let you stand on your own two legs on the he's volatile, so let's get him off the field as fast as possible front. I'm gonna let you stand on your own two legs on that one.
Well, I mean, like not just because of that, but because, like I said, he's got a very powerful arm. He's naturally going to throw the ball really well. Look, really well in the terms of he can throw it far. They have and their guys can break down field ridiculously fast.
I mean, kind of going along with what you're saying, but spinning it in a way that I think makes a little bit more sense, in my opinion. Oops. Um, he has the um, he has the arm strength to get the ball downfield, and so they tried to utilize their speed whenever they could, and so they kind of played a high risk, high reward offense in the fact that when you're throwing these deep passes, there's going to be more potential for them to get batted up, get them batted up, get them picked off, whatever it may be. Um, so I think that the picks were. I think it's more likely the picks were um, an outcome of the type of offense rather than the type of offense being an outcome because of he's likely to throw picks. But that's my personal opinion. Anyways, let's try to focus a little bit more on. We've gotten off on a little bit of a tangent here, but that's fine. I kind of expected that to happen. The offense is going to look different. And they kind of started to plan for that accordingly, which we'll talk about in a minute when we get to the draft. But let's just talk about the defense for a second. This is the part that I think needs the most care, in my opinion. They were 15th in yards allowed per game, 30th in passing yards allowed per game. They allowed the least rushing yards in a game, but in the per game. But I think that part of that could be that if you have such a lackluster passing defense, why would you run the football? Um, that is also my personal opinion. Also, with the type of offense that they had going on, for the most part, they wound up in a lot of shootouts. If you go back and look, there was quite a few shootouts they got into over the course of the season, and honestly, past seasons as well. They just tend to wind up in a lot of shootouts, I've noticed. Um, but they were also 29th in points allowed, so they were putting up points at huge ticks, but they were also giving them up, which kind of reinforces what I was saying about them winding up in quite a few shootouts. Now, I am going to give the defense a little bit of a kind of a caveat here and say they did have multiple season-ending injuries to their safety, safety position, which is going to not help. I'm not. This defense still wouldn't have been good regardless. But having your top two free safeties, just to name two guys, their top two free safeties went down with season-ending injuries at different points during the season, and Justin Evans and Jordan Whitehead. That's obviously not going to help that defense. Um, Anyways, let's get into the draft now. I think we've gotten off on our tangent enough for tonight, or at least for the moment. We started off with a pick at offensive tackle out of Iowa, Tristan Wirfs. And I think that this pick makes a lot of sense with an aging quarterback like the one they have. They want to make sure that they have as good of an offensive line as they can get. And this kid still needs some work, but he has, and to quote, elite potential. He's got great size and the rare athletic tools that few linemen possess to accompany his good length. He's got inconsistent footwork, yet he rarely loses in pass protection, and he has the potential to develop into an elite pass blocker. He's got good lateral mobility and range in the run game, so this is a very, very solid tackle prospect for them. He is projected to start this season at right tackle, and I like this pick for two reasons. One, it gives them an impact player on the offensive line that they're going to need this season to keep Tom Brady on his feet. And two, it's going to be a guy that, he's going to be a solid, impactful player, or he looks like he's going to be an impactful player on that offensive line for as long, pretty much as long as they want him, to be honest. The offensive linemen, barring injury, have very long careers. So, but he should be an impactful player for years to come. Next up, we got Anton Winfield Jr., a safety out of Minnesota. He's got instinctive and excellent toughness for his size. Excuse me, he's got instinctive. I can't speak. I'm so sorry. He is instinctive, and he has excellent toughness for his size. He's a ball hawk, and he's competitive when the ball is in the air. He's also got above-average hands. He's an aggressive run defender, and he actively looks for contact, so he's not scared, despite maybe being a tad bit undersized. And he's got good stopping power. He's a perfect fit for Todd Bowles' defensive scheme, especially because of his ability to compete when the ball is in the air, as well as his flexibility to move around the formation. Specifically, it was noted that Todd Bowles blitzes quite often. I think it was something like the second most blitz-heavy defense in the league last season. So I would look for him to be kind of put in some of these tougher positions where he's going to have to compete when the ball is in the air, maybe even in one-on-one coverage, and he's going to have to be willing to come up and make plays. So this was a good pickup for them. He's projected to start at strong safety this season, help buff up that secondary a little bit. And I think that again makes sense. They needed help in pass coverage, and he should be able to provide that. Next up, we got Keyshawn Vaughn, running back out of Vanderbilt. He runs hard between the tackles, and he has the lateral mobility to make guys miss. He's an above. Oh, it does not want to show his highlights for whatever reason. He's got above average top end speed and is threat for big yardage if he can get a seam. Well, let me get this back up. He runs hard and he has good balance. He's also got good ball skills and can run routes. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I think that this offense is going to look a little different. I would expect some more touchdowns. Wow, check downs to his running back and guys like his big tight end in Gronk. So I would say, especially as he's gotten older, we've seen this be something that Tom Brady has done and the Patriots have done for him. So having a receiving back out of the backfield is going to be helpful for them. He is slated to start at running back 2 to start the season. But I would expect him to see quite a few snaps, especially, again, with his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. That's something that's going to be huge for that offense, giving Tom Brady check down options, the way to get the ball out of his hands instead of having to take those hits, take those sacks if nothing is open downfield. Next up, we've got a wide receiver out of Minnesota, Tyler Johnson. He's a solid route runner, and he can create separation. He runs well with the ball in his hands after the catch, but he doesn't necessarily have great speed. Matt, does this sound familiar to you at all?
I think it does.
It's almost like this is the exact archetype for most wide receivers that Tom Brady has thrown to over the course of like his last at least 6 or 7 years in the league. Somebody that is going to be a very, very solid route runner to be able to create that separation. He's going to run well. He's not necessarily going to have elite speed, but he's just going to be able to get those yards after the catch. It almost sounds exactly like I'm describing Julian Edelman. But, anyways, back to Tyler Johnson. He does fit very well into, again, that archetype that Tom Brady is looking for in his wide receivers. So it's a good find for them. Again, you're going to want to try to stick to what he knows as much as you can. He doesn't really have time to, spend a year trying to learn a brand new offense. So you want to try to keep it to something that he knows. Um, Obviously, he's one of the, greats for a reason. I'm sure he'll be fine adapting, but, there will be some similarities in this offense to what they ran last year in New England. It's just going to be the kind of the nature of the beast. But Tyler Johnson is projected to be wide receiver 4. He is a little prone to drops on tape, but he was still one of the most productive receivers in college football over the last few seasons. So I would expect him to spend a fair amount of time in the slot. I think he'll definitely see some looks, maybe on some shorter routes, especially over the middle. So I think that for a lot of reasons, this pick makes sense for them. Somebody that they know will be kind of able to create that separation on these, crossing the field routes, which is they're gonna kind of be their bread and butter, honestly, for this offense. So it makes a lot of sense there. Next up, we've got Khalil Davis, defensive tackle out of Nebraska. The first notable thing is he ran a 4.75 at 308 pounds at the combine. He shows a high motor and he has a lot of upside, but he still needs a little bit of work, or not a little bit of work. He needs a lot of work. Uh, he takes too long to get off blocks, and he can sometimes give ground in the run game. He also needs to work on his hand fighting to rush the passer effectively. He is slated into as backup nose tackle to start the season, but he's definitely got potential to develop. Give it some time. Next up, we got Chappelle Russell, outside linebacker out of Temple. He's got average size and speed, but he's got the versatility to line up in or outside. He shoots gaps well, and he can disrupt plays in the backfield, especially when he lines up between the tackles. And he chases with good effort. He's listed as the third string linebacker to start the season. Now, these last few picks here, they are later on in the draft. They had 2 7th-round and 6th-round picks. So Tyler Johnson was actually a 5th-round pick that they found that will probably be impactful for them this season. And then these last 3 picks here were in the 6th and 7th round. So you're not expecting anything too major this season out of these guys. With their last pick was Raymond. I'm gonna say Calais, although I heard when I was looking up his highlights, they did pronounce his name differently. I just can't remember what it was on the top of my head. Maybe Calais or something like that. Anyways, he's running back out of Louisiana. He's a bit undersized, but he has not a bit undersized. He's 5'8". He's undersized, but he has good initial quickness and top end speed. Honestly, when the first thing that I did when I was reading through this was I went and I looked up his highlights. He's honestly got insane insane foot speed. It was actually like one of the videos was titled like track speed or something like that. Which I think it makes sense. He was pulling away from guys for sure in tape. He does lack power a bit to break contact, and he is a smaller target with short arms in the passing game. But despite never leading the team in rushing, he still averaged almost 92 all-purpose yards per game. I did make a comparison myself, which is part of the reason why I looked it up. Darren Sproles was only 5'6", so size is not necessarily everything, especially at the running back position. I think that he's got the overall speed that he can make an impact on this game if you can get the ball in his hand. So I would expect for them to try to find a way to work him in. He is only listed as running back 4 to start the season, but I think that 1 or 2 injuries at their running back core, which I don't think is as much as we hope that everybody stays healthy. It's not super unrealistic. It is a very injury-prone position. I would expect to see him get some looks, and I think that he could do. I think he could do some damage if he get him the ball. And another note is that he can make an impact on special teams if nothing else. With that kind of speed, he can be a very effective. If he can, as long as he can secure the ball, I would expect him to be an effective punt returner or kick returner for this team with that kind of speed. So I would say that out of their last pick in the 7th round, I would say they got a guy with solid potential and somebody that even potentially, given the opportunity, I think could be an impactful player for this team. So I think you can kind of see where this is going, Matt. Do you have an opinion grade-wise where you think this team should end up?
No.
No, you don't have an opinion.
Well, I think I think they definitely rank on the better end of drafts, but I'm not gonna, you know, I don't want to risk saying something and then be, entirely wrong from what you're gonna say. I don't know.
Well, no, I'm definitely gonna rate them highly as well. So I was kind of looking at, um, we spent a lot of time on this channel looking at draft value, and where the guys are drafted versus the production that they're expected to have this season. Because personally, I feel like at this point where we haven't seen any of them on the field, you can't necessarily say, oh, that guy's a bust just based on you know, oh wow, I don't like his tape. Like if they were drafted in the first round, they were drafted in the first round for a reason. So I tend to look and put a lot of value in the middle round picks, which Tyler Johnson I think could be a great player for them this season. And that was in the fifth round. Keyshawn Vaughn in the third round. I think he's definitely, I mean, not has potential to be impactful. I think he will be impactful. He's running back too. I would expect to see him on the field in a lot of in some passing situations. See if they can get him the ball out of the backfield. So I think they did well in the middle round picks, and even later on in the draft. Maybe not the defensive tackle or outside linebacker. Maybe they still need some time to develop, but their last pick in the draft, I think, has the potential to, make an impact this season, if nothing else, on special teams. So, um, I was gonna slot them in somewhere between an A minus and an A. Is that where you were looking?
Yeah, I was looking at A minus, and personally, I think they're about an A minus or a B plus.
Yeah.
But I the biggest thing for me is that they also got value out of their seventh round draft pick has a chance to be impactful. So I definitely think they're in the A range.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna slot them in at an A minus. I do think that uh, their first seventh round pick and their sixth round pick, Khalil Davis and Chappelle Russell. I do think that the two of them um, are going to need some more time to develop, for sure. I don't think either one of them are necessarily ready to be kind of a starter right now, which I think is going to keep them from being at an A. If either one of them had been, ready to play now, even if he wasn't slotted to start this season, if he was ready to, I would probably put them at an A. But given everything, I think an A minus is more than fair for them. They had a very good draft. They positioned themselves well. They gave themselves some talent on offense. I think the defense, um, I, they did pick up that safety in the second round, um, Antoine Winfield. And I like that pickup for them, but I do think that they maybe could have looked defense a little bit more often. But I think the hope is also that they just more health this season. Honestly, they've had a lot of injuries, especially in that secondary. So I think that is what they're looking at for this season. But I think that is it for me. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? I know you were excited to talk about famous Jameis, even though this is not necessarily his video. So this is your one chance.
I have no clue, man. I just wanted to. I don't know. I just fucking found Famous James hilarious. So that's all.
All right, that's fair enough. Um, Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Again, we do not own the rights to those clips or anything else that was not shown. So anything that was not on the ESPN draft page will be linked in the description down below. So make sure to check that out. Also in the description is the link to our social media, our Twitter and Instagram. We're not particularly active on those, but if you click the link to our Discord, we are very active in that. So if you come on over and say hi, we will be sure to discuss, I guess, any sports, esports, doesn't really matter. We're kind of down to just talk to you guys and hang out and see what's up. Um, I think that is going to wrap it up. Make sure to look out for also coming out today, Tampa Bay Rays preseason grades from Matt over here. Matt, have any prospects for the Rays?
Pretty good.
That's all you got for me?
That's all I got.
You normally
They
have like a
Rays. They're
good
pretty
30
good.
seconds. You normally have like a good 30 seconds of like, oh, this
Why
is
the
what
fuck would I talk at them for 30 seconds?
You
It's
normally
near
do.
video.
It is, but you normally wind up doing it anyway.
I don't talk about that long. Just like the Tampa Bay Rays, man. Even Tampa Bay Rays fans are like, yeah, it's the Tampa Bay Rays.
Fair enough.
Thanks.
Anyway, so make sure to check that out. I mentioned earlier that we were gonna have quite a few videos coming out this week, more than usual. So tomorrow we have the Tennessee Titans. Um, Wednesday, Matt comes out with the Phillies. Thursday, the Redskins and the Yankees. I know Matt's excited to finally get to the Yankees. And then Friday, we wrap it all up with the Philadelphia Eagles. So make sure to come back and check those out. Again, like, comment, subscribe. And we will see you next time. Peace.